Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1. This is the first official episode.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's a big day.
Yeah, so last Sunday we did the big episode 0 where we kind of introduced the idea why we're doing another men's podcast when there's already so many out there. And lots of great ones out there, by the way, if you haven't checked them out. Mm-hmm. Some of them are kind of explicit, so you have to be careful. But
tread carefully through the list.
But so that was last week, and today we're going to get into virtue a little bit, which I know from the start of it, just like that doesn't sound exciting at all. Why would we want to talk about virtue? That's not the kind of podcast I would tune into. But I think it'll be worth it once we get into it. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start with a little bit get to know you, and we've got a couple new guys at the table this week. Mm-hmm. So sitting to my right, your left, if you're watching at home on Facebook, is Paul, cool voice Reyes, the other of the brothers.
Hello, everyone. Nice to have you all with us today. Good evening,
afternoon, whatever it is. Yeah, so
whatever time you're listening to this podcast.
Whatever time of the day.
So I'm trying to pull up the live here, see if I can see it. There we go. I don't want to listen to it. Shh. There we go. Now I can see if anyone comments. All right. So and then I'm David. Hi. Nice to see you. Sorry, I just thought for some reason Michael Scott in The Office, like where he says, "Date Mike." Like, nice to meet you.
With his hat backwards.
Happy to meet me, or whatever he says.
Didn't realize we were on a date.
But I'll be here almost every week. Not for sure every week, but most weeks. And then sitting here to my left, your right, for the first time on the podcast, Shad Thomas.
Hello.
Shad, how are you doing today?
I am warm today.
Yes. So we just shut off the air conditioner.
Very toasty up here.
There's no actual air conditioning in this room. So if we start sweating, as Rylan said, it's not because we're nervous. It's because
it's 90 degrees in here.
Speak for yourself.
When we shut it off, it was 79, so we're getting warm.
Yeah.
It's all for you guys.
It climbed fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting a little warm.
Got some new decorations in the room, too.
Yeah. Rylan got these letters for us, so thanks, Rylan, for doing that. Those look great.
David built a lamp over there.
Yeah, a new lamp made out of a gas can.
Nice.
And an upside-down bucket. Yeah. So
it's a manly thing.
Rustic.
Well,
That's right.
We got to introduce Rylan. Rylan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Beautiful day outside. When I walked on the waterfront yesterday, just enjoyed the nice sun after work, and just so nice.
Yeah, here in the Pacific Northwest, we're having this ridiculously warm, unseasonably warm week.
Yeah.
80s, like 83 yesterday.
Very weird for April, especially around here.
Yeah, my lack of air conditioning is really allowing me to enjoy this weather.
Yeah.
It's getting a little warm.
A little toasty.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
But.
Yep, I went air conditioning shopping yesterday. I'm like, how do I get this home on my electric scooter?
That's right.
I can't lift this thing.
Shad was talking to us about his electric scooter just a little bit, and it can go how fast?
A whole 17 miles an hour. Yes,
17 miles
Flying.
an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we somehow, Rylan brought it up, talking about somebody that he knows that has...
My dad knows him.
Your dad knows.
He went on a bike ride with him today or something like that. He injured himself, I'm not sure, in some sort of way, but he has like an actual unicycle, one wheel that you're sitting on with the spokes, and it's electric though, and he said it gets up to like 40 miles an hour.
40 miles an hour.
Couldn't imagine going 40 miles an hour on that.
No, thank you.
One wheel.
No, hard pass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're banned, but we're not.
We're not that manly.
Not that. Bad, I mean, come on now. Settle down.
Not even in a bubble suit.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
really.
so to get us started, let's see what any fun projects you guys been working on this week. Anything you've been doing around the house, around your apartment? Anything fun that you'd like to share with us? That I'll get us started. Give you guys time to think. I've been working. Well, I'm still working on Hannah's room, like 5 months, almost 5 months, 4 months, not 5 months. So I was working on mudding. It's my first time trying to mud drywall. Never done that before. I watched my dad do it a whole bunch of times, watched other people do it, but I've never done it myself. So that's new. I wouldn't say it's exciting.
Yeah.
That's not something I enjoy yet. Maybe someday if I get really good at it, I might like it.
It always looks easier than it
does.
really is, you know. I had to do that once, and I watched a video. I'm like, oh, you just slide it on and sand it down, and then I look at it.
It's like the
It
Pinterest
didn't
versus
end well.
reality.
Right. Yeah.
Pictures.
That's exactly what it is. This is YouTube versus reality.
I know it.
You've got these guys on watching these professional drive, like good enough to like make videos about it and have millions of views drywallers, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like you just take it across and slide it on, and then you come back and smooth it out, and like it's not nearly that easy when you do it yourself.
Kind
But
of
the
like
other thing was I've been working on my lawnmower, and for the last 3 or 4 years, been fighting my riding mower. It would run and it'd run for like 20 minutes and then stop. And then you have to let it sit for a while, and then you try again. And it would work for a little while, and then another 20 minutes. And I think I finally got it figured. I think I finally figured it out yesterday. Anyone? Any guesses what it was? Paul's a mechanic kind of guy.
Bad spark plugs?
Not spark plugs.
No.
that's what I would have guessed.
You're out of gas?
Not gas. Always have plenty of gas. Something to do with the carburetor. I'll give you a hint.
Nothing.
Clogged?
Nothing.
Yeah.
What?
Clogged? Lines clogged?
Not clogged. It's a new carburetor. Bought a new carburetor like last summer because I thought it was the carburetor problem. I don't know. And I've got bubbles coming up in my fuel filter. So somewhere I still have some air getting in the line coming from the tank, and I don't know where that is, which is a problem I have to fix. But I think I solved the problem. I think what the problem was the air fuel mix.
Oh.
So I had it running. And it just wouldn't stay running. And then I was sitting out there on the mower on Google. Like, I have to solve this problem. We have to be able to mow our grass. We have like 2 acres of grass we have to mow.
Yeah.
And so I get on there and finally I just found one guy. He said that the air mix and maybe it's a little too lean, a little too much gas getting in there. So I backed the screw off and it stayed running, and I was able to finish my mowing. So
There you go.
I think maybe I've got it fixed. So that was my project,
Nice.
my big victory in this last week. So hopefully I won't have to tell that story again.
So my mower was broken down again.
Oh, really?
Anybody else working on any fun projects?
I've been doing putting a lot into my coloring and my art.
Right, yeah.
I've spent like 5 trips over to Michael's across the bridge there on my 17-mile-an-hour electric scooter, going, man, I got to get the right color. It seems like skin is the hardest thing to get down for getting a color. I'm
Right.
like, and then so I've been working. I'm a comic book guy, so I've been doing pretty good with my drawings. But I'm always afraid to add the color to them. So, because I seem to screw up my good drawings, I'm like, I really love how that turned out. And then I screwed up with my color. So I've been using the coloring books that you can get by at the comic store. They sell adult coloring books, Wonder Woman, DC, all those ones. And I colored this one, and it's just like some of them turned out like really good. Some of these, because it's a full lineup of Justice League. And I was, speaking of Pinterest, I was flipping through Pinterest today, as I do a lot, looking for ideas to draw. And there was the exact design in the coloring book. I was like, man, I really wish which is kind of cool, but because I could compare it up to what it looks like on Pinterest and I did pretty good on some of them, but so again, the skin, I'm like, what color is that?
Yeah. That's a good idea, though, to get like one of those coloring books, and you can just practice, and you don't have to, quote, sacrifice your own drawings while you're testing things. And yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good call.
Cool. Any other projects that anyone wants to share?
We got a couple things we're doing at the house. So our house, we're trying to figure out a big summer project, and So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? We ran into a little money. Weird, just showed up in the bank account. I was like, oh, hey, well, now.
The stimulus fairy arrived
right.
at your house, right?
look at that. And then all of a sudden it got unseasonably warm. And so I'm like, I think maybe this is the year we're going to do something about it. So I've been researching and looking, and I think the next project I'm going to tackle is a installation of a mini split.
Oh.
Because, we've got our living room area. It's a big area and attached to the kitchen, and it's always so hot. And, we kind of plant these little AC units here and there. But I was looking at this, and I was like, I feel like this is doable. And so I priced it out. And then and then they were like, oh, by the way, you can add another head unit, control unit, to another room and just put another extension. Oh, okay, so I can do a double mini split. And then I'm like, okay, but then I could do another one. And then it spiraled out of control after that. But I think I'm going to start with just this dual head unit mini split. And it other than the electrical, because you have to, get the right power source out to it, and I'll burn the house down for sure. So I'm like, you gotta get a electrical guy in there. But we are gearing up to begin that very soon, and if the weather continues, it will be very, very soon.
Yes, yeah,
so,
yeah.
Not a project for you, huh?
Yeah, no, it'll be good.
Yeah. So that must be the appeal of mini splits, is you can add heads around.
Yeah, you
one
can.
unit.
That's right. So one unit can power up to 4 of these heads, and they're very efficient, and they're much cheaper than central air. Central air is like $10,000 to $15,000.
Wow.
But one of these guys, we can power. I figured it out. I think I can install 2 units to air condition 5 rooms for probably like $5,000, $5,500 or something like that. Wow. So and they're not that difficult.
Yeah.
Says me today. We'll see,
We'll see after you start and do the project.
See how it pans out.
So you do it, and then you tell us how to do it.
Right.
So then we can do it up here. Then you learn all the mistakes for your home, and then we can add it into the room upstairs.
Yeah.
Great idea.
All right. Well, so let's see here. Let's get into it. Should we get into it?
Yep, let's do it.
Warning, maybe I shouldn't say this because everyone will stop listening at this point in time, but it's a little bit dense. It's dense material, but we want to talk about virtue, and we want to talk about why we need to talk about virtue and why we're building the podcast on virtue. Last week we talked about why we're doing the podcast, but today we want to talk about virtue. And but before we do that, I want to refresh us on the problem. So the reason we're doing this podcast is because men make up 97% of all prison inmates in the country. 97%. So 97% of all people in prison right now in America are men. Wow. Men make up 71% of the homeless population. So that's almost 3/4 of the population. 24.7 million children live without their biological father in the house, which is 33% of all children in the country. And the average boy will have spent 10,000 hours playing video games by the time he turns 21, and consumes on average, the average boy, an average of 44 hours of video game, TV, and device content over the course of the week. And so we want to encourage men. We want to, empower men. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't want to steal a word from another movement, but at the same time, there is a problem. There is a problem with men in our country. We do have a lot of men who we would not say are men, right? But if we're going to say they are or aren't men, then we have to have a definition of what a man is. Yep. Which is what we're going to talk about today, definition of man. By the way, if you're watching live right now on Facebook, say hi, let us know you're here. If you have any questions, throw them in while we're talking, and we'll do our best to work them in. But to get started, I've got some cards here, so I'm going to just
ready.
Two card shimmy is what I'm going to call this game, the 2 Card Shimmy.
Do we get to look at the card, David?
Yep. Look at your
Thank
card. All right. So let's see here. Actually, we're going to show our cards. So I've got a queen of diamonds and a 10 of clubs. Paul, what do you got over there?
Got a queen 2 offsuit.
Got a 4-8
A what?
offsuit.
Offsuit?
2 different suits.
Oh, so you know how to play cards.
Well, let's just say I know what they are. That's
We got a shark on the table. 3 and a 7 offsuit.
All right, yeah, you'll have to explain card terminology to me later. But so I'm passing out the cards, so I get to determine the rules, I guess. So, so unfortunately for you guys, I win this round because I had the queen of diamonds and the 10 of clubs, and so that's the trump pair. So you can leave those there. Let me give you
well done.
another couple of cards here.
Because I'm not entirely sure how you won that. But okay,
No.
we'll go with it.
See how this game is
Yeah.
going here. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Start with Shad here, who
Yep.
looks like he has a good hand.
Offsuit, king, and queen.
A king and queen. All right, Rylan, what you got?
Offsuit Reds, 2 and Jack.
Ooh,
Offsuit
okay.
reds, 2 and a jack.
So this is a special hand, and you don't get this every day. I have the ace of diamonds and
And
the
Joker.
Joker.
and the Joker.
Well, joke's on you because you didn't win.
Yeah, the
That's
joke's on
right.
you because I have 2 sevens.
Oh,
Yep.
is that good or is that?
Boy.
Well, that means I win all of your cards.
Okay. What is this game called?
Yeah, this is called the 2 Card Shimmy. All right.
Two
So
cards.
does that mean the joke's
2 cards.
on
Shimmy.
you?
All right. One more. This
Okay.
this one's really.
Do I even need to turn over my cards? I'm thinking like this is.
So if you do the same, is it on suit? Because the other one's off suit.
No, they have to be the same.
Just like
That's what I'm
mine
saying.
is
So,
a
like, on
4 and a
suit, is that on
5
suit?
of hearts.
Yeah, they're suited.
Suited.
See?
I'm suited.
suited. All right, you're
Suited up.
suited with a 3 and an 8.
Got the 3.
I would have put my suit on.
Shad, you're suited too.
I am.
I feel like David,
he's got a heart
this
today.
deck may be stacked.
You think so?
'cause we
Oh,
have
he
the
got the
3
Joker
and
again.
the
Joker
other
again.
Joker.
I think that is an automatic disqualification.
All right. Well. So I have 2 jokers.
My mind just got blown.
Yep.
What just happened?
So,
Right. So
I didn't know
win.
there's
I win.
4 jokers in the deck.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't know
impressive.
there were any decks with 4 jokers.
well,
in
it's
them.
not the Joker that disqualifies you anymore. So
Because this game is a joke.
All right. We'll
Yeah.
we'll just kind of leave that out there.
I think so too.
Well played, sir.
Yeah. Anyone watch Friends? Cups. Remember the episode with Cups where Chandler?
It's trying to give Joey money
Yes.
and yeah.
Yeah. So that's my own version of it. That's the 2 Card Shimmy. All right. So
So it says we have 3 comments, but I can still not see my comments.
I don't see
so
any
I don't
comments
know
either.
what is going on
Uh-huh.
with this whole Facebook thing.
Bummer.
But oh, there they are. Okay, I can see them now. Okay.
hey.
I don't see him.
I had to go to like a separate area in my Facebook
Comments?
page. Weird.
Welcome, Shonda.
Please leave your comments about that game and how you felt about that, and we'll see if that matches the rest of us.
Somebody said David has the Zoot suit. Not sure what that is.
Zoot- yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
going to be a
I mean,
riot.
That's the name
You
of
don't
my
want-
scooter.
You don't want to have a zoot suit. I'm pretty sure that's a racist thing that you don't want to have. Shad, you have to look that up on Wikipedia real quick. See what a zoot suit is.
Man, they remember does not condone.
I
zoot
hope
suits,
not because
please.
that's
Thank you.
that's the business where I bought my scooter from. So I hope it's not racist.
No.
I can't remember. I don't think it's good, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Origin of Zoot Suit. Here we
All right.
Is
So
it? Yeah,
first
there you go.
discussion question, and feel free to chime in on this. What is a man? So if we're going to say that there are men, if there are men who are living a certain way that aren't men, they might be males. They might be grown up. They might be full grown males, but they're not yet men. What is a man? How do you define a man? In your mind, in your did you see it? What is it? What's a zoot suit?
Yeah. Okay. Zoot Suit originated in African American comedy show in the 1930s and was populated by jazz singers. Cab Calloway called them totally and truly American, and a young Malcolm X wore them. So I think we're okay.
Still not entirely sure they are, but
Interesting.
I don't
a
think-
suit?
It's a high men's suit, high-waisted, wide-legged, tight cuffed.
But what are the Zoot Suit Riots? What is that? I don't know what that is.
I recall it was a popular song.
I remember that, yeah.
Were a series of conflicts in June 3rd and 8th, 1943 in Los Angeles, California. Excuse me. United States, which pitted American servicemen stationed in Southern California against young Latino Mexican American city residents. It was one of the dozen wartime industry cities that suffered race-related riots in the summer. So,
so there's some tension there. With
okay.
it, yeah.
That's where the...
As long as we don't put the riot on the end of it, I think we're okay. Maybe. I think.
All right, so what is a man? And your definition, what's your definition when you're looking for the difference between a grown-up boy, a grown-up boy and a man? What would you say? What comes to mind for you?
A man that takes responsibilities for not just his actions, but for the head of the family, and leads by example.
Okay, so responsibility leads by example. Good, good, yeah.
Say a man with character, someone that stands up for what he believes in and has, for me, it's the values that line up with the values that I think a man should be. I mean, that could be different for different people, but a man that just shows character and doesn't kind of back down from pressure. I guess.
So character, then you would define character as having a set of values and then living your life by those values.
Yep.
And if you don't have character, then you might have values, but you don't live your life according to them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree that responsibility part of it is huge, to take your actions and, be accountable for what you do. And the actions that you perform are not just for yourself, for personal gain, but, you recognize kind of the bigger picture of what you do and, who you're trying to help, who you're trying to represent. So,
good.
Being a man of good character.
Yeah, good and serving. So that would be one thing there. So, so you all you mentioned virtues. There was a mention of virtue and everything that we said, and so this is how we, I guess, as a podcast. It's not. I guess so far not, but it hasn't been a very democratic podcast. I'm just kind of saying this is what we think and what we're defining, but. So how we're defining man is this: a man. What is a man? A man is a male who has learned to control his appetites and desires with virtue. So a man is somebody who has a desire for things, has appetites for things, but he controls that hunger, that desire with virtue. What do you guys think about that?
I think that it's a great definition. What I would say is that what we're defining what we're shooting for? Or, because if you think about a definition of society as a whole, that's not
right.
That is not what's going on right now. Right. So, are we defining that as what we're heading for in our direction? That's kind of my question that I pose is.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the society's definition of a man. There's just so many different priorities that the world places on men, or men place before many other things. But I feel like in this instance, with this first episode of our podcast, this is kind of to be a man that they would remember. This is some qualities that we believe a man would portray.
Yeah, and I didn't even work the name in the introduction of the podcast.
Look at him.
Thank you, Matt.
Natural.
I really appreciate that.
It was that.
Natural podcaster.
That was the sign.
Yeah, we've got some natural skill
opened up
right
my
here.
eyes.
Awesome.
It's the voice. It brings out the natural podcast.
Yeah. I think I need to change my voice now.
He's got a super cool voice. We had him do a video for Christmas. We're going to start using his voice, taking advantage of his voice a lot more often.
Yeah,
But-
well, thank you.
Rylan, looked like you were getting ready to say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, because Chad was talking about, like, how is that the way we're defining a man, or is that like the world? And obviously, that is not the way the world defines a man. I mean, I don't think we even really have a definition for a man anymore in our society and world.
Well, we do. I think our society has a definition for a man.
Yeah,
We don't like it.
no, not a huge fan of that.
Our society's definition of man is bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
You know, the
Oh.
loser who sits on his couch all day and drinks beer and watches football. I mean, that's basically how our society defines man. I think it's even worse than that now. I think society kind of defines man as an aggressor or as an abuser, and that's kind of become a little bit more standard understanding of what a man is, and that's not good either. So we've got to work. So to answer your question, Chad, we're trying to set a proper definition of man, and try to help guys lead towards that or live towards that, hopefully. So if a man is then a male who has learned to control his appetite and his desires with virtue, then we have to ask the question, what is virtue? What is virtue? What do you guys think? How would you define virtue?
I would say a set of morals that's developed in one way or another. But if I'm going for the MTR, my mindset is there, it's at least for me, it's mostly biblical. As I aim towards my virtue, that's what I measure mine towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like you were saying, it's kind of definitely more like a biblical side. But even apart from the biblical side, just men that I have a tendency to remember are people that really try to stand up and do some sort of good for others, right? Like someone that is outside of themselves and their own daily lives and for living to try to make a difference in the world around them, whether that's on a huge scale. It doesn't even have to be on a huge worldly scale, but even for like their direct friends and family, if people like you just know there are men in your life that have made an impact on you and the people around you, and those, in my opinion, are people like of character, people that you're gonna remember when they're gone because they left that little, even a little bit of legacy where you're like, man, that's a man that I kind of want to model how I live.
Right.
That's kind of my definition of values and virtues, and because values is such a difficult one because there's so many different values in the world. But for me personally, that's kind of like the men that I remember. So
good. Yeah, dictionary.com says that virtue is moral excellence or goodness, or that virtue is conformity of one's life and conduct to moral and ethical principles. So basically what you guys are saying, like, having virtue, you have moral and ethical principles and you live by them. It's kind of, character would be another way of saying it, like Rylan was saying. So, but there's an article on the website artofmanliness.com. I'd encourage you to go check it out. Good, by the way, good resource for men, artofmanliness.com. Lots of good resources, tutorials on there, all kinds of fun stuff. But there's a tutorial on girding up the loins. So if you ever wanted to know how to gird up the loins, you can go check that out on the Art of Manliness. But this is the article. So artofmanliness.com/articles/men-without-chests, and we'll have a link to this in the show notes for this episode, so you can go find it there if you want to go check it out. But he just kind of walks through. C.S. Lewis, who was a philosopher, he died back in the 80s, I think, but he was a philosopher. And he wrote a book called The Abolition of Man. Now, he wasn't just talking about men, but he was talking about mankind in general, abolition of I think, mature men. But he has this quote, and you might have heard this quote. He says, "We make men without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful." So there's this quote, and it's a really rich quote, and C.S. Lewis really, he's the guy that I have to read really slowly. I have to have a dictionary close by because I have to go look up these words, because he's English, so and we'll get to a word in a little bit that Shad actually had to go look up because I didn't know what he meant. But so what does he mean? We make men without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise. What does that mean? So I want to just kind of get into it just a little bit. Nearly all world religions suggest that there is a natural order. There's a way things work, a modus operandi. That's the Latin, cool way of saying a way things work. So if you didn't know that, now you know.
Wow.
That's right. That's Latin.
I didn't know that.
I had 1 year of Latin in the 8th grade. So yeah, that was my, yeah. I think I did not do well. I'm pretty sure my grade was not good in that class. So all world religions suggest there's a modus operandi, and truth in that religion is that which corresponds to a reality, or the particular reality that of this way of the way things work, right? So there's truth, and then there's the reality that truth creates, essentially. So if there's a natural order to things, then there must also be a right and a wrong and a good and bad. And you can see this all around the world, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Almost all world religions have a right and a wrong, a good and an evil, right? There's a way things work and a way things that they don't work. But appreciation and understanding for right and good don't always come naturally. So in world religions, they always have a list of things you do and you don't do. There are some commonalities all around the world. What we would call in Christianity the 10 Commandments. Those are pretty consistent around the globe. Do not murder, don't cheat, don't steal, those kinds of things. Pretty consistent. You can find those in almost every society around the world, and I think those are kind of hardwired into people. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of other right and wrong that we have to learn, right? In large part, knowing what is right and wrong. The majority of what we consider right and wrong, good and evil, are things that have to be caught and taught. Mm-hmm. So we have to see them in people around us, and then we have to be taught them as we grow up. Now, discussion question, what happens when you have a majority of men who haven't been taught right and wrong and who haven't been around virtuous men to have caught it? What happens to society when men aren't taught right and wrong and haven't caught it from virtuous men?
For me, I'm, where I live, I live close to the share house down there, and you can see plenty of that. What happens when it goes south? When that virtues aren't taught, and I'll be the first one to admit that it didn't happen a lot in my household. You work hard, you suck it up, and you really don't show emotion. There was alcoholism in my whole life of my family. This is what I was brought up around. Now I had some male role models that I looked to, but it seemed there was always a drink in their hands when every one of the male figures that I was around, even my grandfather that I just absolutely adored, but there still was a drink in his hand at all times. And I'm just using that as an example of that's how I was taught. So there was never drinking too much, drinking all day was not out of the question. It was taught to me. It was embedded in me. My grandpa gave me a drink at 6 years old. Here, take a drink of your first beer at 6 years old. Hated the taste. I got to love it. I got to love it too much, and after that, it was like this made me feel a certain way, and now I was off and running on the friends that I hung around with, and that got me off onto another branch, and it took me on many, many years of addicted behavior, not just with alcohol, but with drugs as well. Now I use that as a platform in my life today on helping others and what I can be of service in that for. But I'm around other men that are trying to tweak me, enough to get me back in line, and I surround myself with men of value of the way I feel like it is right. So yeah, I'm in the right direction. So.
Good. You know what happens in society when you have a majority of men who haven't been taught virtue?
Yeah, it kind of has almost a snowball effect. You have, at a certain period of time, the vast majority of the leadership, in families, the man of the house, portrays certain traits and their own form of virtue that they feel is right. And if they lead by, what some people might call a poor example,
right?
That is taught, and the next generation, children, see and model and take on those same traits.
Right.
And lack of a good role model in their life, they have children, and then the cycle just kind of can repeat itself.
And that's if there is even a role model at all for them to look up to. Yep. And oftentimes the role model that kids have in their homes today, especially in some of the families that we know, it's maybe mom's fifth or sixth boyfriend this year, or each one that rotates through has a different set of ideas and values. If you want kind of a picture of that, the Hillbilly Elegy is a book that can kind of help paint the picture of what life is like as a child growing up with rotating father figures coming through the life, in and out of life in different ways. So, I think what's happening is what we're seeing around us. I mean, it's devastating to our society. It's kind of a train wreck in a lot of ways. And things seem to have calmed down a little bit for the moment, but you always still kind of get the feeling like things are just kind of just barely below a simmer. And there's a lot of stress and anxiety right now that's kind of starting to creep in a little bit with the George Floyd trial and stuff that's going on in Minneapolis, and you're starting to see police across the country are preparing, towns across the country preparing for potential rioting and protest as a result of whatever happens with that, and I would say, yes, what happened with George Floyd is a tragedy, but at the same time, responding to that, without thinking of the harm that we're causing is also a tragedy. And I think that's probably the result of not having male role models teaching kids how to deal with frustration and anger and all that kind of stuff. All right, keep moving here because we're going to run out of time. We're already we're almost out of time. All right, so we're going to have to jump ahead. So let's see here. Let me ask a question. Are you a naturally driven, optimistic, and invested person? Are you a naturally driven, optimistic, and invested person?
I'm an optimistic person. I want to believe that that society can turn it around. I want to believe that there's good in everybody. I want to believe that things will eventually turn around. When I see you put the George Floyd thing as an example, I hope that the outcome. I'm hoping that the outcome is always going to be in a positive way.
Good.
And I don't know why it does. And then I get disappointed most of the time. But I am always optimistic. Like, come on, we can do this. And I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah, it's a good quality. Optimism, I feel like, will take you a long ways. It's good to be optimistic. I like to think I'm optimistic, and I like to think the best of people, and sometimes I can be not the most, but I feel like that's one of the things that I do pretty well. So I feel optimistic.
Yeah, I think so.
But as far as driven goes. Yeah, I can be driven when I feel the drive to be driven. But that a lot of times that's part of the problem is I can be very it's like, well, I know it's really hot and we've got the money, but the mini split, that means I have to install it and I gotta research it and I gotta go and buy it, or I could just
turn on a fan.
I could just, I got the air conditioner that I can just put in the window.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll get by. We'll cook a little bit, but a little less. Being driven is something that,
right.
Yeah, I can struggle with.
Yeah,
definitely.
For me, I would say, what were the three? Driven,
natural, optimistic, or invested, as opposed to complacent.
So the question is, are you naturally, right?
Right.
Naturally.
I would say no, and no.
Right.
Right. Like naturally, I'm not any of those things. I work my hardest every day to be super optimistic, right? I don't like to give it into the negativity that is in this world, and at the same time, like I try my best every day to be driven and to make things happen. But am I naturally that way? No. It's something that needs to be worked on every day.
Right.
It's not something that just is easy for me to just be like, oh yeah, this is my to-do list. I'm just gonna go out and take care of this. No problem.
Right.
I'm like, but there's Netflix. There's
Right.
anything else but
Always.
doing this right now.
Yeah. So while we're on that, can you think of any examples in our society of people who are driven entirely by desire and appetite apart from virtue?
Most people.
Media. Yeah, absolutely.
Any specific examples? Actors, athletes, anything like that coming to mind?
Like you could run into the tabloids right in the front of the. I was walking through Walmart yesterday, and I was going to check out air conditioners, and just kind of. I haven't walked in Walmart in a while, but I was just like, how many tabloids they have in front? But it was Brad was here, and it just went down. Oh, Brad's being betrayed. I think that caught my eye. I can see it in my mind right now. I just went down. But my naturally optimistic viewpoint is that. To see a shift in the media, in movies, more family movies, things of that nature, that it will shift. There's that natural optimism.
Right. Yeah, one example that always comes to mind, the first one that always comes to mind for me for some reason is Tiger Woods. And you can, looking back, he had a total meltdown.
And he's changed a lot.
Right. And he's come back, right?
Yeah, except for speeding and wrecking.
Except for that, exactly, right? That's exactly my point, was like he came back and even just right before that accident had gotten right back to the top of the game, right? I mean, he was finally competitive again, winning some competitions, that kind of thing. Not a huge golf fan, but this is just, what I've observed and heard. But then it wasn't enough, right? It wasn't enough. And this is I think what happens when you're driven by desire alone, which I equate with dopamine. There's a book called The Molecule of More if you want to go check it out. It's kind of a nerdy book, but that's the kind of book that I like. But it's all about dopamine and how dopamine always just wants more. And dopamine, it's kind of like our survival chemical, that it's trying to get you to go after more so that you survive, to get more shelter, get more food, get more all of the stuff that you need. And it's never satisfied because it's just kind of, you need more to survive, at least, prior to our modern life.
Plays a big part in addiction.
It played a big part in survival, but it plays a huge part in addiction. Go ahead.
Absolutely, it plays a huge part in addiction, and that's why the opioid epidemic is so powerful, because it's that dopamine that it creates in your brain. It shoves extra dopamine into your brain, so and through your body. So you come to rely on the dose, but then it's not enough. It when it's natural. And I've studied all this and learned it through many years of being in other places to learn this stuff. But they taught me that you just want more and more and more. But the natural, if you're just mellow and you're natural and it doesn't come without forcing it, you can survive real easy. But without it, you need more and more and more. Right. It's a great example.
Well, it doesn't help that those drugs actually increase the production of dopamine in your brain and make it even worse.
The whole
right?
point. Yeah, it increases it, and then it's not enough, so you have to keep increasing your dose because 5 milligrams just isn't enough anymore. Now you need to take 2 pills that create the 2 milligrams, but you run out of those 10 milligrams really fast. So now you need to go to the street, and then you buy pills for how much? Oh, they're charging me this. Hey, try this one. This one is more powerful and it's cheaper. Yeah. Next thing you know, you got a whole string of heroin addicts all along.
Right.
It's a perfect example of that.
I think like with Tiger Woods, getting back on track, but then you just kind of get dissatisfied if you're driven by desire, if you're driven by dopamine, and it's like, well, he's got to chase something, chasing some kind of high. And I think you just see that with speeding. It's like, well, it's a high, it's a rush, right? It's some way to get that high and chase it again.
How fast was he going? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I just know I heard the report, and they said that speed was what caused the accident. Yeah. So that's all I know.
Okay. Because it's hard to say that. Because if he wasn't like on anything, it's hard to say that he wasn't still coming back. Because I mean, let's be honest. At least 2 of the 4 people at this table speed all the time.
Right. Right. But yeah,
we won't say who.
No names.
I will. Me.
Me too.
I can't. My scooter only goes 17 miles an hour. I am virtuous in this.
Nice. Nicely played. All right. Last question. Do you have any habits in your life that you had to train into your life that now you feel noble for doing them?
I'll start with this one because absolutely. I always hated reading. I am not a huge reader, but for like the last 3 or 4 years of my life, I've tried to spend at least 15, 20 minutes a day reading, not just out of the Bible, but out of like leadership books, like John C. Maxwell books, and just different books to kind of help myself grow in different ways in my life. And that's just something I am proud of myself for ingraining. Is just pushing through my absolute not liking of reading to not just read to read, because I still don't like just reading fictional books to read, but reading something that will help grow myself to be a better man, to be a better person. So
absolutely.
Shad, you got any?
Yeah. I struggle.
Struggle?
I struggle with the word noble. There we go. The noble came into my struggle.
Right.
Because that's what as I stated earlier, through addiction and alcoholism, I'm being taught by men that's done this, that's done have a lot more sobriety than myself, and taught these things are teaching me. I'm learning from my sponsor, and he's teaching me a lot of really cool stuff, and in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm learning so much, but I can use that and I can say virtuous or noble, but the humility part of me wants to take that down and just say, I'm just giving back what is given to me. And so I struggle with the nobility.
Right. Yeah. Paul, you look like you're ready to say something.
For me, it's, something that definitely feel good about. It's gonna sound like, I'm this amazing dad, right? I'm this amazing dad.
We know what's happening.
Is spending time with my kids. Now, before you think, oh yeah, there it is. Like, all right, it's for me.
Dad of the year, right?
That's right. For me, it's it's not natural. Almost my natural selfish tendencies is to be just selfish. It's like, well, what sounds like the most fun,
right?
Like Chad's saying, what's going to bring that dopamine? What do I want to do that what sounds like a lot of fun,
right?
And sometimes that's just not going to kick the ball at the park or something like that. And over the years, just trying to ingrain that into me that, this may not be the funnest thing, but when you do it and when you invest in your kids, it feels so good.
Right.
It brings that that was the best thing I could have done today.
Yeah.
And I am no saint, because I there's so many times where I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. and that's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And I've made that choice, and there's been so many times where I'm like, man, I wish I would have chosen something different. So
yeah, I've done the same thing.
Trying to, keep my thoughts in line with that, and feeling good about that. That's when I succeed at resisting myself and my own wants, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It feels
fantastic.
Good.
Awesome.
That was a good.
Well, to kind of wrap things up here, Lewis, there's a whole lot of stuff he's trying to cram into here that we're not going to have time for. But really quickly, he uses this allegory, Plato's allegory of a chariot, where basically the chariot is pulled by two horses, a white horse and a dark horse, a light horse and a dark horse. And what Plato says is that you have to learn to use the power of the white horse to control the dark horse. And the two have to work together for you to be able to fly the chariot. It's a flying chariot, which would be cool. But
it would be awesome.
Yeah, to get the chariot to fly, you have to use both horses together, and the only way for it to work is to have the white horse controlling or leading the way over the dark horse, which is desire. So the white horse is virtue, and the dark horse is your desires. And I think it's what you guys have said. We've all had to learn. There are good things that we know are good that we've had to learn how to do, and when we do them, we feel good for doing them. But we had to learn how to do them along the way, or someone had to teach them how to do it. But right now, we live in a society that's not doing that. We're not teaching men. We're not training men how to pursue the virtuous things so that they actually have the ability to feel noble for having done the good thing, right? Now it's just all going and getting your own stuff.
Yeah.
It's getting your own desires met.
Mm-hmm.
So let me read that quote again, and then we'll wrap this up. So here's the full quote in context. Lewis says, and all the time, such is the tragic comedy of our situation, we continue to clamor for those very qualities we are rendering impossible. You can hardly open a periodical without coming across the statement that what our civilization needs is more drive, or more dynamism, or self-sacrifice, or creativity. In a sort of ghastly simplicity, we remove the organ and demand the function. We make men without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. I think it's a really good depiction of what's actually happened in our society.
Yeah,
right
absolutely
now.
It is.
So men without chests are men who are driven by desire and appetite alone without virtue. Men with chests control their appetites and desires with virtue. So in our definition, a real man is someone who controls their appetites and desires with virtue. You guys have any closing thoughts?
I just have one. As I sat here, I was like, man, just think of if I just had that right role model at the early age, how much good I could have done.
Right.
Though I don't sit in that, I still ponder it, you know. But there's nothing I can do about it past. So what I can do is what I can do today. You know, how much good can I do today? How much virtue can I bring into maybe not my adult kids, or maybe but the other kids that are around me, other young males that are coming up, on how can I be a good role model to the ones around me?
Right, yeah.
And so that needs to be learned in me so I can teach other people so it spreads.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just like you're saying that, trying to become that role model, that maybe you didn't have as a kid, trying to take these values, these virtues, and to, do something to change yourself, do something to resist yourself, to not give in to your own desires. And, we're big part of this is we're learning how to be better men, to be men that we are like, okay, that's a good man. That's who I want to be. And this is, a lot of things we talk about here. This is who I want to be. So that snowball effect, what I, show to my children, or even those surround me, to other men, they will see that, and it will hopefully, snowball downhill. And
Right.
For sure.
through generations.
Yeah, so like a big thing to remember, like if you're wanting to become a better man on this podcast, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in future podcasts, but just the progression of perfection. Like you're never just gonna be perfect at being a better man, right? Like it's just not how that works. You're always gonna make mistakes, and just like Paul was talking about earlier, playing kickball with his son at the park, just taking a break from Netflix and just saying, okay, I'm gonna choose to grow myself a little bit today and go out of my selfishness and go play with my son at the park for a little bit. It's just a great way to live by. So.
Yeah, good. All right, that's all the time we had. We had a couple technical difficulties
just a couple.
here.
Riley got us straight in the interim, and I think he was stacking
got a
like
mad straight. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right, so you can find us online. mantheyremember.com is the website. Our podcast is available everywhere now except for Google. I haven't gotten the confirmation on Google or Pandora, but everywhere else, iTunes, Spotify.
I heard it on Spotify. It was lovely.
Yeah,
Amazon?
Manly.
I think it might
Does
be
Amazon
on Amazon.
Have podcasts?
I know it's been submitted
They have
to
everything.
tune in on Alexa, so you should be able to soon be able to go to Alexa and say, "Hey, play the Man They Remember Man They Remember podcast." So
I will give it a try.
yeah,
Okay.
and everything else should be short. So if you're a Google person, then you should be able to subscribe soon. But we appreciate you sharing the podcast. We're trying to get this off the ground. We want to encourage as many men as we possibly can, especially if you're here in the Pacific Northwest in the Vancouver, Washington area. We'd love to connect with you on a more significant level. So we're going to be doing some events coming up, and we'll let you know what those are in the very near future and try to get the details for those ironed out, like climbing Mount St. Helens and skeet shooting and some other projects, some other fun projects the guys had some ideas about when we were talking about it. So it might be pretty fun. Also, Facebook.com/mantheyremember. And there's a group we're trying to build where we can actually go into this Facebook group and encourage one another. And you can click that. You can go join the group as well. So yeah, help us build the network. Help us build the network of men, encouraging men to be men, so that so that we are virtuous men and be the kind of man that they'll remember when we're gone.
That's what we're doing here.
Perfect.
All right.
Absolutely.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you again soon.